Are you getting ready to move and you're worried about how you're going to get your fish and your aquariums over to your new place? Well, stick around because that's what we're talking about on this episode of Tank Talk. Welcome to another episode of Tank Talk. My name is John Hudson from KGTropicals.com, and this is a show all about addressing your questions and comments submitted in the comment section down below or through any other forms of social media. I'll have all of my contact info listed at the end of this episode, but for now, let's move on and get to the first comment. First comment today comes from Cool Man, and it reads like this. Hello, I want to ask you that I have 4 little goldfishes in one golan. Is it okay?
Stupid.
I'm as stupid as a stupid does.
You're so stupid.
Stupid as stupid does, Mrs. Blue.
Why are you so stupid?
Are you stupid or something?
You're amazingly stupid.
Stupid as stupid does, sir.
Okay, so today's real comment comes from Consider Me Dead, and it reads like this. Hi, John. So my fiance and I are moving to a new apartment in a few weeks. I'm worried about moving my fish. How do I move them without causing them too much stress? I'm glad he put the without in all caps because otherwise I wouldn't know he was serious. I'm not sure if there's anyone on this planet more experienced in moving fish than me. God knows, I've moved a lot. Moving your aquariums and moving your fish is something that a lot of people stress out about, as if moving isn't hard enough and stressful enough. When you incorporate fish tanks into the mix, it can definitely increase the stress level and make things just a complete disaster. But I have a few tips, some things we can talk about that'll hopefully make it as stress-free as possible. The most important advice that I can give you in this video, if you only get one thing out of it, it is to know to make a plan. Picture the entire move in your head. I'm not talking about moving your TV and your furniture and all of your clothes. I'm talking about your aquariums. Make a plan. Picture it all in your head exactly how it's going to go. Where are you going to put your fish? Where are you going to house them until the move is done? What do you need to make sure that you can house those fish properly and so that they'll be okay while you're moving? Think about all of these things. Put together a plan, and then you can execute it once you're ready to move. Trust me, just making a plan, even if it's just in your head, is going to help you out a whole lot. You'll know what you need to do before you even get started. The first thing that I want to talk about is an in-town move, meaning you're just moving from here to a couple of miles down the street, or in Consider Me Dead's case, a new apartment. I'm assuming he's just moving down the road into maybe a bigger apartment or one that has an extra bedroom, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you're moving within the same town. You're not moving across the country. The best piece of advice that I can give you is to dedicate time exclusively to moving your aquariums. What I mean is you have your moving day where all of your friends are going to come over and help you, hopefully, and you move all of your stuff, your furniture, your TV, everything, but you leave your tanks there. And then once everything else is moved and settled, you dedicate time exclusively to moving your tanks. Trust me, it's going to be a whole lot easier doing this. Commit an entire day to it if you need to. Doing it this way is going to be a lot less stress on you and, more importantly, on your fish, because just imagine if you move your tanks with everything else. You're going to drain them, you're going to throw them into the tank, who knows where you're going to put your fish, and more than likely you're going to be so consumed with the move that your tank is going to completely dry out. It's going to be a huge disaster. You're going to have to recycle your tank and everything else. Forget about all of that. Don't throw all of your aquarium stuff in with the rest of your stuff. Do it independent from that. This way, it's a lot easier. Hopefully, a couple of your friends can stick around till the next day to help you move your tanks, depending on how big they are. But just believe me, go with this. Commit exclusive time to moving your tanks. When it's moving day, head over to the old house and first things first, get your fish somewhere safe where they can be for an extended period of time. Now, what is this thing? It could be something as simple as a 5-gallon bucket or even a Rubbermaid tote. Just make sure it's something that you can pick up or even with a friend pick up and transport, but you want it to be somewhere where the fish can be comfortable. They're not going to be happy, but at least you can have them comfortable while you're going through this whole process. Whatever it is that you put them in, even if you have a small 20-gallon tank or something and you only fill it up halfway, stick an air stone in there to keep the water moving around, keep the fish fish able to breathe so they don't suffocate. And if it's really cold when you're moving and you're in and out or whatever, make sure you stick it away from the door and maybe stick a heater in there to keep the fish warm. Again, if the fish are happy and they're somewhere safe, it takes a lot of the stress off of you. You can concentrate on moving the tank and moving it successfully without having to recycle everything. As long as the fish are safe, that's one less thing to worry about. So just make sure you're going to put them in something that they can be in for a while where you're not going to have to worry about them. And of course, if you're putting them in a bucket or anything like that, if your fish are jumpers, you're going to want to put a lid on there. But for God's sakes, don't seal the lid off. Just put it on there enough. Leave a gap so that the fish can't jump out, but air can still get in. So the fish are safe. Now it's time to talk about moving the tank. Don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. It's a very simple process. First things first, of course, shut everything down, but we are going to want to try to keep everything as wet as we possibly can. So when you drain your tank, drain it almost all the way, maybe just below the substrate line, so that your substrate is not just wet, but it's actually still submerged under the water. You want to keep everything as wet as possible so that you don't kill off that bacteria. Now, I've done this with tanks all the way up to 150 gallons. So before you start thinking, oh my God, it's going to be too heavy, I can't carry it. Come on, suck it up. Lift with your knees. Yes, you can. It's not as bad as you might think. I'm not telling you to keep 5 inches of water in the bottom of the tank. I'm just saying maybe a half an inch of water down at the bottom with the gravel still in the tank, and you're going to keep all that beautiful beneficial bacteria safe and sound in the tank so that when you get to the other end, you can fire it right back up again and everything's still good. Next, we got to move your filters. I want you to keep your filters as wet as you possibly can. If you're using hang on the back filters, disconnect the intake tube, lift the filter off of the back of the tank, and just keep all of the water that you possibly can in it. Don't dump it out. I know this is difficult to transport, but maybe you could put it in a big Rubbermaid tote or something. Remember, when you're putting your plan together, if you don't have these totes, you might want to grab a couple of them. This way, if you have it in a Rubbermaid tote in the back seat of your car or whatever, and you're driving it over, if it tips over, you're not going to get your car floorboards all wet, but it keeps all the water as you possibly can in the filters so that you've still got that beautiful, dirty, and muddy beneficial bacteria in the filter. Now, if you're using canister filters, this is even easier. Just unplug it, disconnect the hoses. Don't drain an ounce of water out of it. Just carry it completely full of water over to the new place. Again, this way you can plug it back in, fire it up, and you're good to go. The bottom line to all of this is you want to keep everything in your tank, all of your equipment and everything within the tank as wet as you possibly can. Remember, if these things dry out, the bacteria is going to die off and you're going to have to recycle the tank. So whatever you can keep submerged in aquarium water, do it. And if you can keep as much water as possible in the bottom of that tank, trust me, you'll be glad you did. Again, you can take it, set it up in the new place, fill it up with water, and you're good to go. It's just like moving a tank from one side of the room to the other. You just have a little bigger gap in between. Once you have everything moved over to the new house, the first thing that I want you to do is secure your fish. Take the fish, whether they're in a 5-gallon bucket or in a Rubbermaid container, whatever it is, put them somewhere, like in a back room somewhere, where there's not going to be a whole lot of foot traffic or anything moving through the room. Keep it as safe as possible, as stress-free as possible on the fish. This way, you can focus all of your attention on setting up the tank, getting that all set up in the right place and everything else, and get your friends to help you move it in so that they can go home and you don't have to worry about them anymore. You can focus your attention where it needs to be rather than having to worry about the fish. So the first thing, get your fish somewhere secure, then put the tank back together. If you've done this the way that I've been telling you to do it, with keeping everything as wet as possible, you should be able to put the tank in place, fill it up with water, try to get the temperature matched up as good as you can, and then put your fish back in it and everything's good. I'm going to say it again, it's no different than taking your tank from your living room and moving it down into your basement. You're not going to set the fish somewhere for 3 days while you do all of that, are you? No, you're going to put your fish somewhere, move the tank, fill it back up, and put the fish back in it, and everything's done. This is the same type of thing. You want to get everything set up, keep everything as wet as possible so that there's as least amount of impact as possible on the beneficial bacteria. Put your fish back in, you're done. Now, if you're moving across country, unfortunately, this is going to be a whole lot more complicated for you, and I hate to say it, but there's not a whole lot of advice I can give you. About the only advice I can give you if you're moving cross country is to turn to a friend. Maybe you have a friend that can house your fish for you for a while until you're ready for them on the other end. Now, you need to consider if you're moving across country, more than likely, there's not going to be any way you can keep everything wet. So on the other end, when you get it set up again, you're going to have to recycle your tank. So your friend might be housing your fish for a month or so, but maybe sweet talk that friend and ask them if you can house the fish there, and then your friend can ship the fish to you on the other end. I mean, that's about the only thing I can come up with. There is another thing, and I forgot about this, but I just remembered. When I had my shop, I did have a guy, a frequent customer, come in one day and say, hey, I got offered a job in Texas. I'm moving down there. If I bring my fish to you, can you hold them for me for a little bit until I'm ready on the other end and then ship them out to me? I said, yeah, throw me a few dollars for the box and for food and stuff like that, and it's no problem. Now, I had to occupy tanks that I would otherwise be selling fish out of. That's why I charged him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have cared. But I was happy to do it. And so he brought the fish in, he moved, and I never saw him again, never heard from him again. So I got some free fish out of the deal. But it wasn't supposed to work that way. I was willing to do that for him. If you have a local fish store, if there's one anywhere near you anymore, and you have a relationship with them, ask them. You never know. They might have some tanks in the back or something like that they can stick your fish in. They might be willing to do it. It's kind of a risk, but, give it a try. It might work. Most people that I've known in this hobby that have moved across country have just sold off their fish, and on the other end, they just start all over again from scratch. This can be a lot of fun, but it can also really suck if you're really attached to your fish. But hey, what are you going to do? So let me know down below in the comment section if you have any other tips that you've come up with for moving fish from point A to point B, whether it be a local move or cross country. I'm sure there's tips and tricks out there that I haven't talked about in this video because I don't know everything. And there you have it. I hope that this video has calmed you down a bit. I hope you're still not calling yourself Consider Me Dead, because that's just morbid. But I hope that helps you out with it. It's really not as big a deal as you might think. But again, make a plan and dedicate specific time to doing this. Don't just throw your tank in with everything else. You need dedicated time exclusively to move your tanks. It'll keep it a lot less stressful for you and much less stressful for your fish. So I want to thank you all so much for watching this. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, why don't you click that like button for us? It really does help us out more than you think it does. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're doing. Lisa and I are doing so many things, and trust me, we've got a ridiculous amount of stuff coming down the pike. So you got to get subscribed now. It's free. Just do it. And this way you get a notification every time we put out a new video. So thanks again for watching, and I look forward to talking to you again next week.